I think I'd like to switch it up a little bit and try to take us out of these definitions and terms that are put upon us and try to talk a bit more about what art can do. And so I'll try to make this question as clear as I can. A thread that I've seen in some of the artworks in the exhibition and thinking about them is the ways in which, and I'm thinking in some instances of Brett Graham and Rachel Wakina's Anawanawa, how art can be a way in which, in the process of making a work, of reminding us of the importance of how the past is always informing the present. It's not a kind of linear thing, but also the way in which art has these extraordinary potentials to transform something, whether it's a moment of, I'm thinking of Ingun Utsi, how your sculptures come from found objects that, for example, the barbed wire is left over from when Germany occupied Norway, when Sami villages were razed, and somehow you've created this object that's so deeply beautiful. And so I wanted to see if anyone had any comments about those kinds of potential transformations in art, and also how art can form a kind of resistance to these, these categories that are placed upon us.
Yes, of course. The situation is that the material, what I'm working with, they talk with me. So I do not decide what I'm going to do. I'm sorry to disappoint you if you believe that. The material, it gives me something, it demands, and often I wonder, what is this? So when I found this tree with a cancer, it was lying on my floor for many years. One day it said, no, it's time. Okay, I started with it. I made it naked. And I saw how vulnerable we are. Because in a way, it was me, this tree. And for me, it is today. Although I have used this wire from the Nazi when they were in Norway. But actually, I can't explain what is happening when I'm making my sculptures. They talk to me, they demand. Sometimes I quarrel with them. Afterwards, when I see them, when I saw it here, because I wonder and wonder, why in heaven did they find out this small thing? They are going to take it to Canada, to the National Gallery there. So really I got shocked when I came into the room, but I was also very happy because all these art pieces, they're talking with each other, they're telling the story, and then I understood. But I did not know that. Sorry.
So in terms of process, I think that inclusion, well, with what I'm doing with my work is there's a large history on Six Nations of theatricality because of an oral tradition, and there's almost an invitation. There's either a visual or a audio invitation that happens. So there's a whole dialogue that in my work I'm trying to have with the viewer and the audience, bringing them forward into the work. Some of it's around beauty, but more it's starting to really come together the past couple of years about this idea of invitation, just like the condolence ceremony of accepting, total acceptance, and allowing the viewer to come forward and bring their life history and their life experience too. So I think that plays a big part in what I've been doing lately.
I think your question was really very pertinent, Candice. I haven't seen all of the exhibition yet. There's so many works, but what I have seen is I think a lot of us are definitely working in those ways. We're making, like the rooms are just, they're beautifully curated, and the works are powerful and they're strong, and they're playing off of each other, and we can see that in each person's process. And I'd like to thank you all for making such great work, and for me to be amongst you all. So, and I think from in my own ways of trying to kind of affect people and create transformative change amongst people. You know, I started in humor because I thought that was a good way to kind of grab somebody's attention, but the more that I'm continuing on this path, I think it's really in aesthetics that last and leave kind of impressions.
Candice, materiality. My material is history, and that really is my materiality, because with that, in history, comes emotion. It comes from experience, and it transforms because of how you handle or how you remember, whether it's through trauma or through prejudice or through racism. And your body takes that, and for me, that is my materiality in my work. It's very, very important for me, even though I handle the material, meaning paint, as on the surface, but it comes with history, just even on the history of painting itself as well. But not just that as well. While you're handling the paint, as the paint moves back and forth, it does transcend something, and it does heal. And it's basically what I wanted to do with a very sad experience of these people in the piece in this exhibition, Paris Ojibwa. I asked to go to Paris to study these drawings by Delacroix of these 11 Mississaugas that were there. And it was very sad because in the end, only 5 of them returned because there was a smallpox epidemic in Paris at that time. And the vaccine would not work for them. And they were very pious people. They were Christian Methodists. They traveled all over England, and then they were brought as a subject by George Catlin to Paris, because it was a first group that had left Paris in April. They were dying as well, and they were in England, the Mississaugas, and they were asked to replace them. It is a sad story, but I learned something from it. I learned something from the handling of the paint and the subject matter and the landscape, and trying to figure out my subject. And that was, there were dead people, Chibaik, dead people. But and this is part of the healing for me, anyways. It may be different from with other artists. I began to decolonize myself, because I was struggling to try to place them somewhere. And they became, in conversation with my own family, they became really what was closer to me in mythology, which is Atsukanak, These are messengers. They are people that live in the mythological world, and they also begin to live and communicate with the dead. And and how did I arrive at? It was an incredible realization for me, because I realized that I had totally been westernized, gone to school in Europe, in painting and drawing and etc. And then I began to talk to myself, trying to place them, trying to put them in a context. And I began to talk to myself in my language. I would speak to myself, and believe me, I never realized how much I was thinking in English, and that's my material, and that's my materiality, and what I got out of that beauty. You look at my work there. It's very beautiful. It's beautiful colors, and the animation is all beautiful colors as well, and that is just to heal. I learned that from a great master, not a Western artist. I learned it from Norval Morrisseau, being close to him and talking about him in the way he described color. Thank you.
I always think that you can be transformed by art if the artist it feels like they've been transformed in the process of making art. And there was this one art work that's in the show that I was struck by, which is made by my sister here. I remember I was talking to you at the pub, and then you were telling me about the transformation idea, how you staged that installation at the church where it was a former Mayan, and then I like how there's a photograph of it and you reenact that as a sculpture. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Hello. Well, we are mestizo. Around Cruz Villegas and me, we make a collaboration piece. And what's very important for us, talk about the hybrid and how is the natural process of the culture and how we feel like impure. It's not like we are trying to find our roots, but at last it's like with the colonization in Mexico, was like impossible to feel pure or some like deep root in the city. So our piece is like a chessboard, and it's very with pieces, and all the prints are very hybrid. They talk from different parts of the world on how we conceive all the material we receive each day. So the picture was very important because it's a document where we were shooting, and this is a very important part in the city, where was in the beginning was the market, Tlatelolco, and was the biggest one in the pre-Hispanic times. And they destroyed the pyramids, the Spanish, and they built the church. Then in the 60s, they built the first multifamiliar, and that was the modernist Mexico. And then in the 68, there was the repression of the students, like in Praga or Paris in Mexico. And also in the 85, there was a big earthquake, so that destroyed a lot of buildings with the people inside. So it was terrible, and this is the transformation of our culture and the space, and is the natural way that it had to be to change. Yeah. So that was the important documents, and to play there with all her history. Yeah, that's all.
Back home, we've got so many problems, like in our communities, like me and Vern, we're living in the same city in Australia, and like there's so much material for us to deal with, and we're using art to try to change the world. You know, that's why I make art. I want to change the world. You know, I'm not very successful at the moment, so you know, I think I should pass on to somebody who's having some success. You know.